We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Welcome back to Liberty Nation Radio. Well, with the Olympics in full flow, the question of patriotism once more raises its head. It seems that large swaths of the population are only ever patriotic about their nation when the party they vote for is in power. Or is it more like what Mark Twain once wrote? Patriotism to your country always, patriotism to your government only when it deserves it. So what is the state of play for patriotism in the United States right now? The country is still rebuilding after the violent Summer of Love, and some say things just can't be or shouldn't be rebuilt at all. To help us tackle this timely issue, we're speaking with Jeff Charles, Liberty Nation author and podcaster. Welcome, Jeff.
Yeah, great to be here.
So, Jeff, give us your diagnosis. How is patriotism in America today, and has 2020's events improved or lessened the sense of patriotism?
My diagnosis is that it's the same as it was before this Summer of Love. I mean, people who were patriotic before the riots and all of, that nonsense, they're still just as patriotic as they were today. I don't think it really moved the needle. And people who were not patriotic still have the same attitudes. Now we do see the left trying to decrease the level of patriotism because it's, how they intend to reach their Marxist, objectives. But I don't think the needle has been moved on patriotism very significantly.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that there's certain objectives behind denigrating patriotism, because in the United Kingdom, where I live, we had the opposition leader recently try and use patriotism, and it was part of a big open campaign where the leader of the party, Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, which is the equivalent of the Democratic Party in America, he says, what we should do to try and reach out to voters is appear more patriotic. And so they started, it was so cringeworthy that this was somebody who would look on at distaste at an English flag prior to deciding it was politically expedient to embrace patriotism for a short time. That lasted about 2 weeks, I'll have you know. Anyway, it seems to me that there are a lot of people making a lot of money from doing down the United States, whether that's political donations, as you just pointed to. But it seems to me that sponsorships, especially advertising gigs and cold hard cash, are rolling in for those who are willing to talk down the stars and the stripes, especially so for those who are involved in the Olympics right now. How has this become so profitable?
Yeah, I call it virtue signaling for dollars. That's what we're seeing with a lot of this woke corporatism that's been, kind of going on over the past few years. I had a conversation with Will Hild, who heads the consumers research, and they have a campaign that's being launched against this. And it's interesting because I've always believed that they're embracing this wokeness because it gets them in good with consumers and they avoid the wrath of the woke mob. And I still believe that, but he brought up another interesting perspective that they're engaging in all this wokeness to distract from the malfeasance that a lot of these corporations are involved in, especially ones that rely on forced labor in China or are guilty of abusing their consumers in other ways. So I think overall, it's just a benefit for a lot of these corporations to embrace wokeness. This isn't a case of them bowing to the woke mob. They're not being forced to do this. They see an opportunity, so they're taking advantage of it.
That's a very interesting perspective, especially when you consider that many of the products that we get, especially fast fashion products, they come out of the Xinjiang region or near the Xinjiang region. There's obviously the new legislation was just going through Congress recently that said that products will be barred from Xinjiang region, which just means that there's a lot of work for truck drivers for the 5 miles just outside the border of Xinjiang. A lot of new jobs created there for heavy trucks and tuk-tuk drivers, which are very popular over there. Now, not being an American, it strikes me as almost bizarre that there are some folks so against the United States of America. Now, this is America is the only country in the world that has the right to free speech enshrined and inviolate in its constitution. And that, to me, it's an amazing thing. And for me, that's what really represents America. I'm sure that's true for many people around the world, especially as we've seen in recent weeks with Cuba and in a few months back in Hong Kong where these protesters, they're carrying the American flag. And that really has been a huge symbol for all of my adult life, at least. So when people speak against America, obviously they're using their First Amendment right, which is wonderful to do so. But what do they hope to achieve? What is it that they want?
Yeah, so I mean, here's what I'll say. I mean, America is the greatest nation on earth, but we are not without flaws, right? I mean, there are still issues that still need to be addressed in order to ensure a more perfect union. I think a lot of these people genuinely want to address the problems that we have. And whether or not I agree with the solutions that they come up with, I think that that's a good thing. However, you also have people who want to use America's problems and its flaws to entirely remake the nation into their own image. And that's what I was alluding to earlier when I talked about the Marxist agenda here, the objectives they want to accomplish. They want to remake America into a more socialist nation. I mean, former President Barack Obama even alluded to that when he said, we are going to fundamentally transform America, not just deal with these problems, but remake the entire nation into something that doesn't even resemble what it is right now. So there's a difference between those who just want to figure out solutions to problems and others who just want to scrap the whole thing and turn it into something else. And that's why they foment a lot of this anti-American sentiment, because if they can get more Americans to dislike our country, then they will be more amenable to the idea that, hey, America is hopelessly flawed, hopelessly racist, hopelessly whatever. We need a complete overhaul. And that's really where they're trying to go with this.
It's funny how so few Americans are fleeing to other countries.
Yeah, you don't get a lot of them, especially the ones who are complaining the most about it.
Yeah.
If you could ask them, they wouldn't rather live anywhere else.
Now, Jeff, we can't avoid the topic of the Olympics. So when a major sporting event like the Olympics takes place, we often get a sense of coming together, of, we're one nation and this is our team and we're supporting. So it's that kind of attitude. Now, are you feeling that with the Olympic Games?
I haven't watched the Olympics in years. But I do see that they're trying to introduce more of that wokeness that I was talking about before. Like they want to hone in on the problems America has instead of focusing on what's great. I mean, when you go international and you're competing in international events, that's not really the time to down your own country. However, I still think that we run the risk of overblowing this, because I still think the majority of our athletes are there to represent a country that they're proud of. And even though they may acknowledge certain problems, they're there to represent the red, white, and blue. So I don't think that it's having as big of an effect as it might seem, but it is still an issue that we should pay attention to.
Jeff Charles, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'll be right back after this short break on Liberty Nation Radio. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Who are we? We are Americans that believe in liberty. We are a project of the nonprofit One Generation Away. We are patriots who apply the founding principles to the issues of today.
And they keep moving the goalposts on us.
We are educators and commentators who love America and the Constitution. Who are we? We are Liberty Nation.